My books, The Origin of Names, Words, and Everything in Between, volumes 1 and 2, are available to purchase from most major booksellers in all major formats. Order your copies today so you can enjoy these books for yourself and help support the channel. The Bayeux Tapestry is quite possibly the most famous piece of haberdashery ever created. This huge embroidered cloth is over 70 meters long and depicts William of Normandy's successful conquest of England in 1066. This resulted in a huge amount of French influence on the land and its language, which shaped the modern nation of the United Kingdom to this very day. This might all seem incredibly unrelated to the topic mentioned in the title of this video, but hear me out, because there's a part of this tapestry I find really interesting. If you look at the smaller images strewn across the top of the tapestry, you will spot something that seems somewhat out of place and incredibly otherworldly. A bright red ball of flames with streaks running behind it. Just below are some people gasping in disbelief by it. It would be easy to create a conspiracy theory around this thing. Is it a UFO, or is it a weird depiction of the sun exploding? Well, no. In fact, we have a pretty clear understanding of what exactly it is. It's Halley's Comet. Yeah, as in that Halley's Comet. In fact, in 1066, it wouldn't even have been called Halley's Comet yet, as Edmund Halley, whose name was lent to the comet, was only born in 1656, some 600 years after the events the tapestry depicts. The comet appeared in the sky over Hastings during the battle, and it is widely seen to be the first recorded evidence of this comet by humans. I just think it's cool that this comet that will be visible again in around 2061 was seen by people from almost 1,000 years ago. It's just kind of neat to me. We tend to think of space and our understanding of it as a relatively new thing, with major discoveries coming through the space race, or even further back with the likes of Galileo and his telescope. Things like comets and space as a whole are things widely linked with more modern science, and of course science fiction. But the night sky and many of the things that call it home have been visible to the human eye ever since civilization began, and before we could truly understand what was going on up there, we humans gave the things we saw in the sky meanings. Comets, for example, were seen as omens, whether good or bad. Halley's Comet in 1066 was seen as an omen by either side. Things beyond just Halley's Comet have been seen by people, however, and sometimes these rocks even land on Earth or are seen just fleetingly. It should come as no real surprise that there are all kinds of different names of these lumps of debris that go through the night sky. I'm sure you know many of these already. Comet, as we just mentioned, but also terms like shooting star, asteroid, and many different words starting with meteor. However, these aren't just different names for the same thing. Many of these names actually mean slightly different things. So what exactly do each of these names really mean? And where did they even come from? Let's start with the kind of thing that William, Harold, and co. would have seen in 1066. A comet. Comets are primarily things made from various bits of space debris like ice, rocks, and dust. What makes them so unique is that, like our planet and many others, they tend to orbit the sun. The fact they orbit the sun is why they can be seen at regular intervals over time, like how Halley's Comet appears every 80 odd years or so. If you are born at the right time, it might be visible twice in your life. As comets fly through the sky, they break apart and leave a trail behind them, which is one of their defining features and the reason why they have that name of comet. As mentioned, comets have been visible to humans for millennia, and this word of comet has its roots with the Greeks and their name for them, Cometus. This means long-haired star, with the former part of the name coming from the Greek korm, meaning hair of the head, and the latter part coming from their word for star, aster. This is because the trail left behind a comet reminded the ancient Greeks of long hair, like that seen on a human head. This then became cometa in Latin, which became comet in Old French, which became comet in English eventually. So comet is one of the words from English which was brought over with the French, which seems incredibly fitting, seeing how Halley's Comet is so deeply linked with the Norman invasion of England, which brought French influence to the English language. As you probably noticed, the Greek word for star, aster, which formed the latter part of the old Greek word for comet, sounds an awful lot like the term asteroid, as that is unsurprisingly exactly where the term came from. The first part of the name simply means that, star, while the latter oid suffix is seen in other words too, and means something along the lines of form or shape. So the name asteroid means something along the lines of something that is somewhat in the shape or form of a star. This is because in ancient Greece, star was something of a catch-all term for things that were out in space. Asteroids, however, however, of course, aren't actually stars. Asteroids are a lump of rock and debris of various sizes and shapes. Some of them are pretty tiny, while others are almost the size of planets. Unlike planets, however, they are not always spherical. Like comets, they too orbit the sun. Our galaxy noticeably has a huge belt of them between the planets of Mars and Jupiter. Asteroids' biggest claim to fame, however, is from way before 1066 in the Battle of Hastings, as it's believed to be an asteroid that hit the Earth millions of years ago that wiped out the last of the dinosaurs. A story every little kid knows, I'm sure. The crater of this asteroid's impact is believed to be located in the modern-day nation of Mexico, on the Yucatan Peninsula. Next, however, we have to move on to the three with somewhat similar names, those being meteors, meteoroids, and meteorites. To understand what these three things are, it probably makes more sense to understand that base word of meteor first. This initially meant any kind of atmospheric phenomenon, meaning it could relate to pretty much anything happening in the skies above us. It comes from the Greek term of meta, which means by means, and aeros, which means things like lifted, suspended, or hovering in the sky. This initial meaning of the word can be found in other places where it doesn't relate as much to flaming balls of rock hurtling towards us. Take the term of meteorologist. This is the name for someone who studies the atmosphere and can even predict the weather. You will often see these kinds of people in front of green screens on the news promising it will be sunny only for it to rain all day. As this initial word relates to the atmosphere, it makes sense why people who study the atmosphere would have this word in their title. What's also interesting is the fact that we have the adjective of meteoric, which means someone succeeds in something very quickly, like a musician might have a meteoric rise to fame. This word actually relates to the kind of meteors that we see in the night sky. As they move rapidly in the night, it makes sense why we would compare someone's fame to that of a meteor. In floating space rock terms, however, a meteor is something a tad more tangible. A meteor isn't actually the lump of rock that hurls through the sky. Meteor specifically refers to the trail of fire and light they leave as they enter the Earth's atmosphere. When a meteor is especially bright or even explodes for one reason or another in the Earth's atmosphere, they are referred to as a bolide. This term dates back to another ancient Greek word, their word for missile or arrow, which makes sense as these bright things are quite like missiles. So if meteor is the term for the trail of light, then what is the rock itself called? This is when we use the term of meteoroid. This is the correct term for the mass itself as opposed to its trail. Most of the time, meteoroids are chunks of asteroids that have been broken off and fallen away from their initial orbit, getting pulled into the gravity of another object like a planet or even a star. Meteoroid is made up of two word-forming elements that we've covered already, the meteor part at the start and the oid suffix like we see in asteroid. Yet when a meteoroid crashes into a planet, whether that be our Earth or another one entirely, it ends up with a different name, that being a meteorite. Yep, this is the term we use for these rocks when they make impact with a planet. Thankfully, however, by the time they land, most of them are no bigger than a little rock or pebble, so don't have too much of a chance of wiping us out like they did the dinosaurs. With this name, the oid suffix is replaced with the ite suffix, which means connected with or belonging to, which makes sense as by the time these things connect with our planet, they are smaller and once belonged to something much larger. And finally, I should probably mention the term of shooting star. What are these things? Are they actual stars that are shooting through the night sky? Well, obviously they're not. Shooting star is just another term for the aforementioned meteors and harken back to a time when anything in the night sky could be referred to as a star. So, in summary, comets are collections of debris like ice and dust which orbit the sun. Asteroids are similar but tend to be formed of rock and are found in large quantities next to each other. A meteoroid is when a chunk of one of these things break off. When they enter the Earth's atmosphere and leave a trail of light, they are called meteors or shooting stars. And when they hit the ground, their smoldering remains are simply referred to as meteorites. So despite seemingly being very similar things, most of these terms are actually completely different names for completely different things. This video topic was suggested by Alex Rook over on my Patreon. Every Wednesday, I put up a video request post over on my Patreon for my awesome patrons to leave video ideas on. I then pick one of those ideas to be turned into a video the following Wednesday. So if you have a great idea for a Name Explain video and wish to enjoy Name Explain videos ad-free as well as get exclusive content and your name at the end of these videos, then why not support the channel on Patreon? It takes just $1 a month to help the channel in a huge way and gets you all of these amazing benefits. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.